Whenever I hear the words Appalachian Mountains, by myself, and at night, I just know it's going to be a scary story. So let's jump right in because tonight's story, all of that happened. So grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary Appalachia story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from AJ. My name is AJ, and here's what happened when I was 18. My family owns a small portion of land that's a part of the Appalachian Mountains. It's roughly 23.5 acres, and it's been in the family for a long time. I've been going since I was a baby every year, during spring and fall time especially. But ever since one night I went by myself, I will never go again without someone. My family's land has several family members' ashes spread on it, and one of which is my grandmother. Since her passing, anytime I would get upset, I would go and talk to her where her ashes were spread because it felt as if she was still with me. My grandmother was my best friend, and I just missed talking to her. I've gone numerous times by myself to speak to her, but this night was different. This day in particular, I was having a rough time, so I decided it was time to go sit with her since it had been a while. It was late fall and roughly 10 p.m. when I left my house to go to the land. On my way up the mountain, I smelled this awful rotting smell, but of course thought it was a dead animal. As I was driving, I was looking along both sides of the road and didn't see one, but assumed an animal was dead somewhere in the tree lines. I pulled up to the property and unlocked the gate, but before I got out of my car, my radio was going static. I didn't think anything of it because it's a mountain, so there are spots where it will go in and out. I got out and unlocked the gate to head into the property. When I got back in my car, I swore for a minute there was a shadow sitting in my back seat when I looked in my rearview mirror. But when I turned around, it was gone. I was starting to get anxious, but it's nighttime, so I brushed it off against my better judgment, thinking my eyes were playing tricks because I had been crying. Heading into the property again, my radio was going in and out, so I turned it off and continued to the opening where we have a fire pit and spots for our tents. When I got to the spot where my grandmother's ashes were spread, I parked and left my car running with the headlights facing me so I could see and sit down with her. I just started talking and was crying, telling her everything going on in my life. After a while, I heard screams, and again, trying to be logical, I thought it was a fox cry because of how high-pitched and far it was. After a while, I started to get a feeling like I was being watched. And the smell of dead animals started getting stronger, coming from the main road, so I was getting ready to leave. I looked down at my phone and realized I had been there for hours talking, and now it was roughly 1:30 a.m. I started to say my goodbyes, told her I missed her, and when I stood up, I looked into the trees, and there she was. My grandmother, standing by one of the bigger trees to the right, roughly 30 feet away. For a split second, I felt pure happiness and wanted to run towards her, but immediately realized it couldn't be her. I just felt pure terror. She then smiled, and that's when it clicked. It wasn't her. Not only because she'd been gone for years, but her features were off, and when she smiled, I just knew something was trying to be her. It's like the moment I realized whatever it was could tell, and her features started to change from human to animalistic. It looked like her still, but her eyes glowed and flickered in the light only the way an animal's do. Her smile was filled with rotted, jagged teeth, and the dead animal smell was so heavy in the air, I started feeling sick to my stomach. Her eyes locked on mine, still smiling. I watched her pull herself behind the tree. She was gone, and I was locked in fear because all of a sudden, I heard something in the distance and heavy running sounds through the woods. I ran so fast to my car, and when I got in, I locked my doors and was trying to find my phone, but quickly realized I left it where I had been sitting. I started sobbing because I did not want to get out to go get my phone, but I had to so I could record myself in case something happened. I took a deep breath, opened my car door, bolted to the spot I'd been sitting, quickly found my phone, and when I got up to turn to my car, there she was. I saw her standing the same distance away from my car, but behind it. Still smiling and eyes staring into me, she started mimicking me. I was too afraid to run and didn't blink, even with the headlights beaming, out of fear she would disappear. As I slowly walked to my driver's side door with my eyes locked on her, she slowly made her way to my passenger side, making a step at the same time I did. We were face to face, and up close I could see her rotted flesh like skin, and it was saggy, eyes almost bulging out of her head, locked on me. Her teeth were thick, jagged, and thorn-like, and it looked like she had a thick liquid coming out. The smell was so pungent that the best way I could describe it was death. I was staring at what I can best describe as the most malevolent and vile thing that no longer looked like her, and she was way taller now, too. Still staring, I slowly reached for my driver's side door handle, and out of the corner of my eye, it was reaching for the passenger handle. I swung my door open, jumped in my car, slammed the door, and tried driving off, but my car would not go. It had been running for a few hours and now doesn't want to go. I started sobbing hysterically because my radio was going from low to high, static, in and out. I turned my phone on and started recording, screaming, saying my full name and saying if anything happens to me, I did not run away, and there's something with me, please just leave me alone, something is here. Just screaming for it to stop and to let me go, all while trying to get my car to go after shifting in and out of drive because it would simply not drive off. I finally slammed it into drive for what felt like the 100th time and peeled out of there, leaving the family gate open. I was speeding home. Once leaving the mountain, my radio went back to silence like it was when I originally got to my family's land. I'm now 24 and absolutely refuse to go to the land by myself and have taken several precautions with whatever seemed to attach itself to me. To this day, I haven't seen what I saw that night, but I always feel like something is watching me, and when I do stay the night on camping trips, I always wake up around 2 or 3 a.m. hearing screams. Several other family members have had encounters here, but not like this. This one will haunt me forever. I truly think if I hadn't locked my doors prior to getting out, something would have happened because my driver's side was the only one unlocked when I got out to get my phone. I have the recording on my phone somewhere of me in my car freaking out, and remember when I showed my boyfriend, now fiancé, a couple days after the instance. He paused the video because he saw a quick white flash behind me, and you just see a blurred, slim, and tall grayish-white figure running past my driver's side. To this day, I haven't gone back to talk with my Nan alone, especially at night, because of whatever it was that took her form. I've had several encounters, but nothing like this, and hopefully never encounter it again. So there was just a little bit more to the end of this email. They were basically just saying thank you for me reading their story, but also based on the research that they've done, they think they saw a flesh pedestrian, if you will. And honestly, I have to agree. It's either that or a mimic, but either way you go, it's equally as terrifying. I truly don't know what I would do in that situation if I was out there at night by myself and no one's around. So what do? Like, you're just sitting there and you see this absolutely terrifying creature type thing that is taking the form of your grandmother. It's just beyond me. That is so scary. I'm just so glad that they were okay and they made it out of there safely. But the car not starting at the end, I don't even know. I'm so glad that it eventually started, but it seems like every single time something bad's happening, you need to get out of there as fast as possible, the car won't start. But AJ, I just want to say thank you so much for sending your story. That is utterly terrifying, but I'm so glad that you made it out of there safely. And truthfully, I do agree with you. I think you either saw that or I think you saw a mimic. But again, either way you go, equally terrifying. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them. You can email me at the email on the screen or the email in the caption of this video. But as always, you guys, I love you more than you know. I hope you have the best night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Let's read some creepy first date stories. One time I went out with someone, and while driving around, he was making comments about how we were dangerously close to running out of gas and couldn't understand why we didn't find a gas station when it felt like we just passed by so many. He made jokes about us having to camp out together, and I didn't like it. It felt weird. Then our GPS couldn't load, and he kept managing to get us lost, thus making more jokes about being stuck together for the night. It wasn't said humorously. When we finally got back to my car, it felt like I was being watched, and I kept seeing something white in the corner of my eye, and then he started wanting to tell ghost stories in his car. I was all sorts of freaked out. It felt like his goal was to keep me in the car, until I kept saying how many people have my location. but it had a touch of paranormal feels throughout the night. Okay, yeah, not only was this man creepy, like getting y'all lost, but also creepy paranormal. Like, was this man a demon? Was he haunted? Hell no. So this happened like a decade ago. I can't remember her name or how we met. My first memory is sitting with her late at night in a noisy pub on a first date. The waitress had just taken our drink order. So we are talking about this and that, and the conversation happens onto funny video clips. So I show her a funny video clip on my phone. She giggles and proceeds to show me one. So I take her phone, and it's a clip of a man getting his head cut off by religious extremists. This feeling of horror, sorrow, and total emptiness comes over me, like a void, like a vast body of dark waters. There's nothing to say, nothing to do, no witty comeback, nowhere to go from here, because it's seen, and it can never be unseen, and I wasn't given a choice in the matter. I just stare at her phone until it locks and the light goes off. I look up at her, and she is just sitting there, taking in my reaction, smiling. There was no second date. Okay, listen, I am all into like creepy, scary horror stuff, but I don't think, if I was on a first date, I don't think I would show them a video like that. At least not without their consent. Friday evening, I agreed to meet someone for a drink that I met on Facebook dating. We had several Facebook friends in common, including my ex-husband's first wife, so I figured giving him my cell number was okay. We met up, and while he was pleasant enough, he started going on and on about his connections to very prominent local people / police, etc., and bragging about all of his real estate. We wound up walking to another place a couple blocks away, and he started putting his hand on my thigh and making me uncomfortable. I texted one of my friends when he was in the bathroom, telling her all of this. I had also sent her his profile. I decided to go home because he continued to make unwanted advances and my spidey senses were going off. I told him he was weirding me out. When I got home, he texted me repeatedly, begging me to call him. Then he called 3 to 4 times. I didn't respond or answer. Yesterday morning, my friend did a little sleuthing on this dude, and he was arrested in 2017 for child SA. He had also given me a fake last name. Then he texted me like nothing happened. I responded that I didn't want to continue and wished him the best. I was honestly a little scared at that point and didn't want to set him off. Well, apparently, he's a stalker too, because he called me late last night 6 times between 12 a.m. and 12:30 a.m., and twice this morning. I had my ringer off, thankfully. I blocked him immediately, but now I'm concerned. I live alone, and it would be easy to find out my last name via mutual Facebook friends. Maybe I've watched too much Dateline, but I'm very uneasy. I've never had something like this happen before. Anyway, ladies, be safe out there. If you meet someone online or like through someone, always Google them. Do they have any mugshots? And I'm not shaming anybody for going to jail, okay? But what are the charges? You know, because some aren't that bad, whatever. But some are really bad. You need to know who you're going on a date with, so freaking Google them. We've all had bad dates, right? This is the only date I've had to date that rang every alarm bell and waved every red flag. I'll preface this by saying I don't go on many dates, but when I do, I make sure I follow safety protocol by only meeting my date in public places. Let either family or friends know where I'm going and park in a populated place close by to wherever we meet. Anyway, this date initially suggested we meet at his house to watch a movie and have a few drinks. And I said no, I don't feel comfortable with that, and I only want to meet in public. He seemed okay with this, but then brought it up a few more times, and I said if money is an issue, we could meet up another time or forget about it altogether. But my date backtracked and went with my idea of meeting at a cafe I chose. Anyway, he turns up in a 2-door car. This detail is relevant. And goes into the cafe, and I follow behind and introduce myself. After a polite introduction, things begin to get weird. I order a Coke, and he says, "Don't you want a drink?" I was going to pop into bar, which is connected to the cafe, and get one. I say no, I'm not drinking, and he looks at me like, what the fuck, as if I'm being unreasonable. I already explained in messages I don't drink as I'm on medication, so having to re-explain it again pissed me off. He seems disappointed and goes to order a cider from the bar while I get a table. Anyway, we sit down with our drinks, and Date immediately goes on about going back to his place again, even though the original plan was to stay here and order food, and I already stated that was not happening. He says something along the lines of having a few drinks and eating at his place, and I said we don't have to eat, we can just have our drinks and leave. He gets defensive and says he has money, but prefers it if we go back to his. I make a joke and say, "You're not a killer, are you?" And instead of laughing it off, he stares at me uncannily and says, "You don't think I would hurt you, do you?" I laugh uncomfortably and say, "Of course not, but really, I'm relieved this date won't be going any further." Date suddenly says, "Are you going to follow me in your car? Because that wouldn't make sense. How about we go in my car? But I've got packages in the front, so you'll have to squeeze in the back, and I'll drop you back off to your car after." In reality, that made less sense than me following him in my own car and then driving home from his house after. The fact it was completely illogical made it even more creepy in my mind. Every alarm bell was going off at this point. I said, "Look, I don't want to go to yours, and your insistence is giving me the creeps." Date looks shocked, mumbles something about needing the toilet, and excuses himself from the table. A few minutes later, I see him through the cafe window getting into his car and driving off. Massive bullet dodged, in my opinion. Also, the fact his car didn't have back doors made it even more sinister, because imagine if something happened in the car and I couldn't escape. Yeah, I was reading some of the comments on this story, and people were saying, this guy did not have good intentions. He was upset that you weren't drinking. Duh, because now you're going to be sober and of sound mind. He can't spike your drink. He can't take advantage of you. And him wanting you to ride in the back seat of his two-door car? That's creepy. This person is really smart. And yeah, I did it a million times in my younger single days, okay? Going to people's houses that you meet online. No, you should always meet somebody in a well-lit, populated place. And don't let any motherfucker try to convince you into drinking.
What happened to this girl is in my top 3 worst fears ever, and I'm not even exaggerating. Angela Hammond was 20 years old, engaged to the guy she'd grown up with, living in a small, quiet town in Missouri where nothing really ever happened. And on the night of April 4th, 1991, nothing was supposed to happen. Until it did. So earlier in the evening, Angela and Rob, her fiance, had spent some time at a cookout with a few friends. Nothing unusual, just a normal Friday night out, and when it was over, she dropped him off at his house at around 10 o'clock. Told him that she would call him in a couple of hours, and she headed back out. I'm not too sure where she headed, maybe to hang out with the girls again, who knows. But an hour later, just like she promised, Angie called him from a payphone in the middle of town. Now, standing outside in the middle of the night is basically asking for danger in today's time. But that wasn't the case for Angela's world. She lived in a small, quiet town where everybody knew everybody, and the worst thing that could happen to you was accidentally dating your third cousin. So she stood there at that payphone, laughing, talking to her fiance, just enjoying the last bit of her night before she had to go home. But then she said something. There's a truck that keeps circling the block. It's like an older model Ford, and it's green. I'm not worried or anything. I just don't know what they're doing. And for a minute, it really does seem like nothing. Just a truck on a quiet street. Rob isn't worried. Angie isn't worried. So they just keep talking. But then the truck slows down right in front of her. It pulls over and it parks next to the phone booth, and the door opens. The man who steps out is this big bearded guy with glasses, overalls, and he walks straight over to the bank of payphones right beside Angela and picks one up. And Angela, still on the phone with Rob, is watching him out of the corner of her eye, describing everything in real time. Her voice is calm, almost casual, and then she notices the flashlight. He pulled out a flashlight and he's looking at something in the dark, something she can't quite make out. So Rob tells her, just ask the guy if he needs to use the phone. Maybe the one that he picked was broken. So she does. She leans over and asks the man if he needs to use the phone. But the man just looks at her and says, no, it's okay. I'll just try again in a minute. And so Angela turns back to Rob, but the man is still there, still not using any of the phones, just standing there. But she minds her own business and she keeps talking to him. She's telling Rob about how much, and then a scream tears through the phone. The most harrowing sound Rob has ever heard. And before he could even get her name out, before he could ask if she's okay, the line goes dead. Before Rob could even consciously decide to move, his body is running straight out the front door. He's in his car. He's absolutely flooring it towards that payphone as fast as he could go. And he's probably thinking, 7 blocks. That's it. She's 7 blocks away. I know exactly where she is. I will find you, Angela. And then all of a sudden, a pickup truck comes blasting past him in the other direction, going way too fast. And before Rob could even fully process what he's looking at, somebody inside that truck leans out the window and screams his name. Robin! And so he knows before the word even finishes leaving her mouth. That's Angela. Rob desperately throws the car into reverse. He spins around and he goes. He gets the truck back into his sights. He's chasing it through the streets of Clinton. He can see the brake lights. He is right there. He is 2 miles behind it. He has it. He is not letting this go. And then he feels it. The car losing power underneath him, because that reverse, that hard, panicked, everything on the line reverse, it damaged the transmission. And now it's dying. He can feel his car slowing down as he hopelessly stares at the pickup truck speeding up. And within a matter of seconds, the truck pulls off the road into the dark, and all Rob can see is the dust cloud it left behind. He sat there in this car for God knows how long, staring at the dark, blaming himself. Why did you give out? I was right there. I was right behind him. She was right there. 2 miles. He had the guy for 2 miles, and then his car died, the man disappeared, and Angela was gone. Wow, that was heavy. Okay. When word gets out that Angela Hammond had been taken, the entire town turned itself inside out. Police, civilians, search parties combing every road on foot and from air. Investigators are running every registered vehicle, matching the description of what Rob reported. Late 60s, two-toned Ford pickup, and they came up with 1,600 possibilities. 1,600 trucks that get checked one by one, and not a single one matches. And so at a certain point, when the search starts coming up cold, and the only person who could actually place that truck at the scene is Rob himself, the investigation turns in a direction that Rob probably saw coming, because, I mean, it always does. People start wondering if maybe the fiance had something to do with it. So the police department start looking closely at Rob's story, and within a week, they clear him completely. Angela's mother, Marcia Cook, said that she never once doubted him for a second. I mean, she'd known the kid his entire life, but Rob still carries it with him anyways, because the thing he can't shake isn't whether people blame him, it's that he was 2 miles behind that truck. He was almost there. He almost reached her. And then he wasn't. As of right now, no truck was ever found. No suspect has been publicly named, and Rob Schaefer grows up and keeps living in a world where he still doesn't know what happened to the woman that he loved at 20 years old. I truly hope that one day her family can get some answers. That is all for today. Please be cautious, be aware of your surroundings, carry protection. I love you guys. Mwah. Group hug.
I need to tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal experiences, or scary stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. I'm a neurosurgeon. My entire life is based on science, which is why I still can't explain what happened to me on my first night in London. This happened back in 2008. I had just moved from Lebanon to London to start medical school at University College London. My flight landed late, around 11 p.m., and it was one of those heavy London nights. Rain pouring, streets shining under streetlights, everything colder than it should be. I was exhausted, jet-lagged, completely unfamiliar with the city. Before arriving, I had rented a small apartment for a month while I waited for my university housing. It was an old building near Russell Square. All I wanted that night was simple: get inside, sleep. I picked up the keys, took a car to the building, and the moment I stepped inside, I noticed how it felt. Not in a bad way necessarily, just aged. It was the kind of place where the walls feel like they'd seen things. The hallway smelled like old wood and history. I actually liked it. It reminded me of something out of a novel. The apartment itself was small, One bedroom, minimal furniture, a few pieces of art, some shelves. But honestly, I barely paid attention. I was too tired. I changed, washed up, and within minutes, I was in bed. Above me was a small window with thin curtains, little flowers printed on them. Even with the lights off, the street lamps outside lit the room just enough. Every now and then, passing headlights would slide across the walls and the bedroom door. I remember thinking I should get up and close the curtains, but I didn't. I just closed my eyes. And within seconds, something was wrong. My entire body went stiff. I couldn't move. The hairs on my arms stood up all at once, like a sudden shock had just run through me. And then I heard it, a whisper, soft, right next to me. Camelia. Hi. My eyes snapped open. My heart started racing immediately. I told myself it was nothing, just exhaustion, just jet lag, my brain playing tricks on me. But then it happened again, and closer this time. Camelia. And that's when the fear really hit me. Because no one in London knew my name. Not yet. I sat up instantly and ran to the bedroom door, throwing it open. The hallway was empty, completely silent. I know I had closed that door. I stood there for a second, trying to make sense of it, then slowly walked back into the room. At that point, I started quietly reciting verses under my breath, just something to ground myself, something familiar. I turned slowly, and that's when I saw him, standing right beside my bed. A man, young, thin, long hair, soft brown eyes. His clothes looked old, not dirty, just from another time. And the strangest part was that he didn't look threatening. He looked almost embarrassed, like he didn't mean to scare me. And then he spoke. Sorry, love. I know I'm bothering you. I've been living here for so long, I just couldn't believe you could see us. I had to say hi before I leave. My mind just stopped. I was staring at him, trying to force my brain to explain it, to rationalize it, to make it make sense. But nothing did. Then he gave a small wave, turned, and walked toward the door. I remember thinking, okay, maybe he's real, maybe there's a logical explanation, until he reached the wall and didn't stop. He didn't open the door. He didn't hesitate. He just kept walking and passed straight through the space between the door and the wall, like it wasn't there at all. I didn't move for the rest of that night. I just sat there frozen, watching the doorway. At one point, I picked up my phone to call the landlord, but I stopped. Because what would I even say? Now I'm 36 years old. I'm a neurosurgeon. My entire life is built around science, around understanding the brain, logic, and evidence. But I still remember that night perfectly. Every detail. And the part that unsettles me the most isn't what I saw, it's what he said. He was surprised that I could see them. All of this, and a few years ago, I was talking to my mother about my childhood, just random memories. And she told me something that I had completely forgotten. She said that when I was little, she used to hear me talking in my room for long periods of time. She always assumed I had imaginary friends. But every time she asked who I was talking to, I gave her the same answer. People that you can't see.
She was in this creepy house in the middle of the night with no running water or even working lights. And her final text was, "Please hurry, I'm scared." Brooklyn Farthing was a gorgeous 18-year-old girl from Berea in Kentucky. It was summer 2013 and she'd just graduated from high school and was super excited to let her hair down. She was an incredibly hard worker and was very talented with hair and makeup. It kind of made sense that she would go into a career where she could end up making other people look and feel beautiful. She'd previously been in this serious relationship with a guy called Jared, so much so that they were actually engaged. And I'm not sure why, but they did end up splitting up. Maybe it was just because they were so young. Regardless, they were still on good terms and Brooke's future was really looking up. She'd passed her driving test on the 21st of June, but it was actually really awkward because her sister, Paige, also had her driving test on the same day and failed. But the pair had got plans to go to this party later on. Brooke to celebrate and Paige to drown her sorrows, I guess. They went to this field/house party with their cousin, but Paige and the cousin ended up just not feeling the vibe. Maybe Paige was a bit bummed because she'd failed the test. So Paige and the cousin decided they wanted to go home, and Brooke was actually okay with this because she'd got all her stuff with her. She did have plans to go and stay after the party with another one of her girlfriends, but you know how it is at a party when you're younger and kind of plans change, people start drinking. It ended up that Brooke's friend, this girl she was going to stay with, ended up leaving with a guy, and Brooke wasn't really very happy about this. Her friend had kind of screwed her over, and Brooke really was stuck at this party now with nowhere to stay and no lift home. She felt desperate, so she ended up accepting a lift from an older guy called Josh Hensley. It was Brooke, Josh, and another random guy who was too drunk to drive himself home that all got in a car together. But for some reason, Josh didn't actually end up taking Brooke home. He took her back to his place that had no running water or electrics. It was literally like a sea den, to be honest. And poor Brooke was actually texting people when she was there saying she didn't feel comfortable and she wanted to leave. She ended up in desperation texting her ex, Jared, at 4 a.m. saying, please could you come and get me? But sadly he was actually in the middle of working a night shift, so he wasn't actually able to until the morning. Her last messages were, please hurry, I'm scared. Now I say her last messages because I have a hunch that the next are from her phone, but not from Brooke. Jared got a text from her phone at 5 a.m.-ish, so an hour later after she said she was scared, saying, never mind, I'm okay, I'm going to a party in Rockcastle County, which was a huge change from being so scared that you want somebody to collect you really quickly. Who goes to a party at 5 a.m? Jared never heard from Brooke ever again. Her personal belongings were never found, and she never showed up to the plans she'd made with a friend the next day. But it gets so much more disturbing than that, because that very same day, Brooke's friends and family were searching for her, understandably, and ended up trying to get in touch with this Josh guy. When they finally did get in touch with him, he was like, yeah, she went off to some party and that's all I know. But then he was like, oh yeah, she left some stuff at my house too. And do you know what's even more bizarre? He was like, yeah, I'm just currently outside of the house because there's a big fire inside. Sorry, what? Mysteriously, the house was on fire, and his story was that Brooke had been inside of the house when the fire started and he'd been out tending to his horses. But when emergency services ran over there, they were like, no, this makes no sense. The only thing that was actually on fire was the sofa that was actually so burnt that it was burnt to a crisp. But there was not a shred of Brooke's belongings anywhere, not even her phone, and those can be pretty hardy in fires. Funnily enough, there was never any mention of this Rockcastle County party. Nobody had been there, nobody knew anybody who'd had a party. Then police got a lifeline. 2 days later, while hunting for Brooke, they noticed her phone pinged off a tower in Blue Lick. But sadly, it didn't help them locate the missing girl. And disturbingly, just years later, Josh was arrested for harmful behaviour towards a minor and possessing child CSA images. That just shows you what kind of person Josh is, and he was the last person known to see Brooke before she vanished. Her case chillingly remains unsolved, and her family have no closure and no justice.
I have a really creepy story to tell you. This gave me shivers, because why are people so weird? So somebody actually inboxed me this story, and it actually happened to them. And girl, I'm sorry this happened to you. For the nature of the story, we're going to call the person that sent me this Amy. So Amy works in an old folks home. She loves the job. She often works night shifts. When she works night shifts, she has to walk home. She lives in a quite built up city. It's quite well lit, but she knows this like the back of her hand. So when she finishes her night shifts, anytime between 1 a.m. to 3 a.m, she has to walk home. Like I said, she knows this city like the back of her hand. So she takes some shortcuts, and these shortcuts involve walking down alleyways that aren't very well lit, which as a woman, I don't recommend anybody doing, no matter how much you know your city. So on this particular night, she finishes around 2 a.m. and she walks home. This night is memorable for the obvious reason what I'm telling you about, but also because it was the first snowfall of the winter, so everything was quite well lit because of the white snow. So when she walks down this alleyway as a shortcut that isn't lit, she could kind of see because of the snow, but also because of people's backyards, they have lights that are automatically turned on when Amy walks by them. This kind of feels a bit like a horror movie. Amy is walking down this alleyway, and as she's walking, she's being illuminated because she's triggering these backyard lights. And as she approaches one area, it triggers the backyard, and she sees a figure pretty much in front of her, just standing there. She's kind of looking at it, thinking, is that a real person? Like, I don't know what I'm looking at. But as she's walking, she notices that she's seeing a face, and this face is like excited. It's got a really excited grin, like, ew, no. Anyway, Amy's hard as nails. She approaches this figure thinking it's probably somebody just outside in their backyard at 2 a.m. As she walks closer, she notices that it's a man, and he has this expression on his face that's very, very excited. Creep. So Amy kind of stops dead in her tracks, and this guy kind of like peers forward with this really excitable grin, and she takes a step back. Now Amy's really confused, and he walks closer towards her. Amy's backing up the entire time, and he says, "Hi Amy, do you remember me?" Amy's silent, as we both would be. Amy doesn't know this guy, never met him in her life. And then he says, "Amy, I've missed you, Amy. Have you missed me?" Again, he's walking closer towards her with this fucking terrifying grin. Amy doesn't waste a second. She turns around and she runs. She runs straight back to her workplace. As she's running, she hears somebody running behind her. This fucking weirdo is chasing her. What the fuck would you do? What would you do? She's buzzing the intercom of her workplace and knocking really, really like loudly, just hoping that somebody answers the door before this fucking weirdo catches up with her. Finally, somebody lets her in, but this guy is like face to the window, grinning, smiling like an absolute weirdo. They obviously call the police. The police come, they arrest him. He's got a whole manner of items on him to suggest that Amy wasn't going to go home that night. He was arrested for stalking. He had photos of Amy since she was in high school. She says that she doesn't know this guy, so maybe he was a janitor, a teacher, just an absolute fucking weirdo. But Amy girl, I'm sorry this happened to you. If you've got a scary story that you want me to share, please DM me. But also, girls, don't walk home alone at night. And if you have to, stay on the phone with somebody, share your location and walk the well-lit areas.
রুটি ঠান্ডা গেলা?
রুটি ঠান্ডা?
ঠান্ডা মানে আব্বা বরফের লাহান ঠান্ডা। এটা রুটি।
শ্বশুর আব্বা আপনারে আপ্যায়ন করে নাই, খাতির যত্ন করে নাই।
না আব্বা আমি
বিলাই মারার রাত আজকা যদি তুই ঠিক মতো দামকে দিবার মানুষ পাই জায়গা চলগা নালে বললাম সারা।
আর দোস্ত মাগো আছে ওগো খানদান আর আমাগো খানদান এক না, অদ্ভুত কিছু নিয়ম কানুন পালন করতে যাইয়া তোমার বাড়ি।
তুমি কইতেছোটা কি? আমগোর খানদানের পোলাপাইন যদি একবার ঘর জামাই হয়ে যায় গা, ওরা তোর খানদানে ফেরত যাবার পারে না।
আমি আব্বা আমারে বুঝামো।
কি বুঝাইবা তুমি?
হয় নাই কা, তুমি আমারে বুঝাইতে পারতা, আমারে মারলা। ওসব আমগো বংশে
আজকে এইসব হইতেছে। আব্বা আমি কই যাবো? আব্বা আপনি আমার প্যারা ড্যাডি। আব্বা
তুই আমার দাঁড়াবি না, দূরে থাক দূরে থাক।
আমি খাটে ঘুমাইছিলাম, আমার লাথি মেরে খাটেতে হালায় ভাইজান লেটে লেটে সারে ঘুমাইছে।
হারামজাদা মিছে কথা কস্তুর।
বউ সেবা সুন্দর করে না করতে পারলে জামাই পিটানোর রেওয়াজও আছে। আই তুমি কুস্তি পারো?
না
জি ভাইজান, ভাবি ফালতু খানদানে কইলাম আজকে তো আপনার বাস হবে।
ফাইনাল ডিসিশন লয়ে লইছি। আজ
তুমি কিন্তু আমার একটা ভিডিও কলও করো না। সোনিয়া, অ্যাঞ্জেল সোনিয়া।
তুমি কি শুরু করছো?
আরে আমি করলাম ডাকি, আমি যেখানে বয়ে আছি।
এই আমার ফোন দাও, দাও কইতাছি।
আরুম না
কি দাও? ছাড়ো কইতাছি, আমার ফোন দিব না আমি।
এইটা আমগো খানদানি রীতি, তুই বুঝছ না?
আব্বা গতকালকে রাত্রে বেলা এমন সেটিং দিছি।
আব্বা ফোন দিয়ে কি করেন আপনি?
এই কথা কই, গান শুনি, এই আর কি।
বাস এই দুইটা কামের জন্য।
হায় হায় করছে কি আমার খানদানির ইজ্জতের ফালুদা খেয়ালাইছে।
তোবা তোবা কোস কি এত বড় বদ জামাই।
হারামজাদা আমার মা।
তুমি বাসে আসার পর থেকে আমাকে বাসে শান্তি সব চলে লাগেছে।
আয় হায় খাইছে কইছোটা কি তুমি?
তুমি একটা ভিডিও কল করে পাঠাও প্লিজ, প্লিজ। কবে আমগো দেখা
কোচিনটা কি এটা আব্বার লগে এমন চিপা মাইটা দিয়েছেন? কেমন ঠান্ডান বউ?
তারপর তো ভয় কাচে মুচু খায়া গেছে গা, তারপর আবার দুর্নাম করতে হইব।
দেবেন এই লাগা চুপ আছিলাম, কিন্তু অহনা চুপ থাকান যাইব না।
কিরে সাজান,
আমরা মানি না, আমগো খানদানে আমরা এক গ্লাস পানি পর্যন্ত ডাইলা না খাই।
আমাগো খানদানে আছে।
এই ভাবি একটা ফালতু খানদান থেকে আইছে, এইসব খানদানের আমি ধারদারি না।
চলো না আমরা বাড়িতে ফিরে যাই।
তুমি কি পাগল হয়ে গেছো নি? এটাই আমার বাড়ি এখনতে।
চৌধুরী সাহেবের সাথে আমি কি কথা কইছি? তুমি কোনো কথাই কই নাই কে? সাজান তোমারে কইলো এত
দিচ্ছেন? হ্যাঁ দিচ্ছেন না? এলা বাইরন, আমার বাড়িতে বাইরন।
একবারে হাসা করছেন আব্বাজান। আপনার পোলার এই বাড়ি থাকার কোনো বিতলামি করলে আমি তোরা ঘাড়াই, কিন্তু ভাবলাম আপনাকে একমাত্র পোলা গাড়াইলে আবার দিলে চোট পায়।
দিতাছো তুমি?
শোনো, তোমাগো খানদানে যেমন কিছু নিয়ম আছে আমাগো খানদানেও আছে।
এইসব ফাত্রা নিয়ম কেউ যেন জানবার না পারে, মনে থাকবো তো? তোর যে নতুন ভাবি
হয়ে যাইবো।
যা মন চায় তাই করো, এই ফোন আমি দিব না। কার লগে কথা কইতাছো? হ্যাঁ
আমার ফোন দাও।
আরে বাপ রে বাপ, কইতেছো কি তুমি? আমার খানদানি পোশাক আমি খুলে ফেলামু, তুমি কি আমার অর্ডার করতেছো?
শিউলিমালা যা কয় তাই অর্ডার।
এসে এসে আমি
বিস খাস, বিস বিস কিনা লইছ।
আমি অ্যাঞ্জেল সোনিয়ার লাগে কথা কইলে তোমার সমস্যা কোথায়?
আমার সমস্যা নাই কা।
হ্যাঁ বাদে বউ আবার পানি লয়েছে, সেই পানি বিদিছে ফালায়া, এমতে করে বউয়ে বারবার পানি আনে আর জামাই বারবার পানি ফালায় দেয়।
আর হইতাছে মায়া গো আসল ঠিকানা।
তোর বাপে ঠিকই কইছে, সাজান যদি আর একটা সপ্তাহ আমগোর বাইক থাকে।
এই খুশির খবরটা তো আমি আমার বাসায় দিয়ে দিচ্ছি। আমার আব্বা আপনারে ফোন দিয়া কথা কইব।
হয়েছে তোমার? এই বেটা এই, তুই তো আমার মানিজ্জত সব শেষ করে দিত।
শুধু কি আপনার মান সম্মান আব্বাজান?
কি কইতেছো এগুলো তুমি? তুমি কইতেছোটা কি? এখন সময় আছে, তোমার আমি স্বামী হিসেবে।
আমি তোমার লগে অনেক খারাপ আচরণ করছি, তুমি আমার কথা রাগ করো না। চলো না বাড়িতে ফিরে যাই।
আমি যে মারছি এটা যদি ব্যাপারতে জানে, মান সম্মান কিছুই থাকবো না। আমি মুখ দেখাবো কেমতে?
আপনাকে পুরো খানদানে মান সম্মান শেষ।